So over the course of the presentation, I kind of felt that I wanted to name the theme of this self-perception. And we're going to be talking about post-colonial criticism with a main focus on Sherman Alexi's poetry. So first we're going to say, what is post-colonial criticism? Most people will already know what this is, but just to reiterate it, from Tyson, post-colonial oppression defines formerly colonized peoples as any population that has been subjected to the political and economic domination of another population. And then we're going to go over some terms and definitions that we're going to be saying over the course of the presentation that you guys thought you should be aware of.
Okay, some of the terms and definitions that are associated with post-colonial criticism are double consciousness, which is the feeling of being caught between two different cultures but not belonging to either of them. The second one is colonialist ideology, which refers to colonizers' assumption of their own superiority. And the third one is post-colonial identity, which I talk a lot about in the poem that I chose. And that's associated a lot with trying to identify and separate colonizers' culture from the colonizer.
So the first poem we're going to be talking about today is from Sherman Alexi's poetry book, I Would Steal Horses. And then I'm going to read it, and I have it over on the overhead so you guys can follow along. You wake these mornings alone, and nothing can be forgiven. You drink the last swallow of warm beer from the can beside the bed. Tell the stranger sleeping on the floor to go home. It's too easy to be no one with nothing to do, only slightly worried about the light bill, more concerned with how dark days get. You walk alone on moist pavement, wondering what color rain is in the country. Does the world out there revolve around rooms without doors or windows? Centering the mirror you found in the trash, walls seem closer, and you can never find the right way out. So you open the fridge again for a beer, find only rancid milk, and drink it cold. This all tastes too familiar. So before I go into analyzing the poem, I just wanted to give a brief summary and background. So this poem was kind of written as a self-reflection of Sherman Alexi's daily life and the habits that he built over the time of living on the reservation. He made a comment in an interview that he did with the Poetry Foundation, saying that this was a time where despair, poverty, and alcoholism shaped the lives of Native Americans living on the reservation. So this was kind of a common thing for people to just use alcohol as a way to cope with their problems instead of dealing with it hands-on. So I kind of wanted to talk about the word noble savage. So for me, when I looked at the definition, I didn't quite understand it, so I tried to make it my own. So for noble savage, I kind of feel like they're saying that this is what his life is like after his life has been corrupted by the things that have influenced his life, such as being on the reservation and not really having a place to go or being surrounded by different people. He was kind of used to using alcoholism to solve his problems since he grew up with his father being an alcoholic, and it kind of influenced the way that he perceived himself today. So some examples I pulled from the poem I'm just going to go over. I didn't really put them with any of the terms, so double consciousness, stuff like this, but just overall post-colonial oppression. The first one is, does the world out there revolve around rooms without doors or windows? So I felt like that was kind of interesting to me because he's questioning what is happening outside the world, and I felt like that's because he's been stuck on the reservations for so long that, yes, he did go to school off the reservation, but he still lived there. And so he was kind of closed in to what was happening to the world around him. And I feel like he wanted to experience that, but he wasn't able to throughout his childhood life. Second one is, this all tastes too familiar. So as I said, it's kind of a normal thing for Native Americans to use alcoholism to solve their problems. So it kind of wasn't that he was, not even that he was using it to solve his problems per se, was that it just kind of built up as a habit. So every morning he would wake up, realize all the problems that he had around him, and instead of deciding to deal with it, he just drank alcohol and went back to bed. It was kind of just his daily morning routine. So at the end of the poem, whenever he said he drank the beer and it tastes familiar, it's because this is just what he's been doing every day for his life. It's kind of just a morning routine. And for the last one, centering the mirror you found in the trash, walls seem closer and you can never find the way out. So I brought that back to him being stuck on the reservation and I feel like no matter how hard he tried to distance himself from that culture or from that reservation, he never could find a positive way out of there. So I feel like throughout his stories, he kind of tells like a little bit about his experience of like trying to move off the reservation and things just not ending up well for him. So he went to high school off the reservation. He was the only colored kid there, so therefore he felt like an outsider. He didn't really have any Native Americans that were going to go to high school with him off the reservation. And then also, he went to college off the reservation, but he was still dealing with alcohol problems. So he never had a clean start going off the reservation, so I felt like this was kind of him talking about looking in the mirror, and he realized that the walls were getting closer and closer because he's stuck and more stuck inside this room instead of going off the reservation and experiencing what life is outside. And then to kind of end my portion of the presentation, I just wanted to ask a question that I found really interesting in Tyson. What does the text reveal about the operations of cultural difference, the ways in which race, religion, class, gender, sexual orientation, cultural beliefs, and customs combine to form individual identity and shaping our perceptions of ourselves, others, and the world in which we live? And I felt like this question kind of really went along with the poem because it really makes you think about like how you perceive yourself and how Sherman Alexie perceived himself. You know, although like this was normal to be like using alcohol and drugs and to kind of be depressed on the reservation was normal to him, it wasn't normal for the outside world. And I feel like a lot of these things, even though they shouldn't have affected his perception of himself, it did. So his race, being Native American, his class, he was in a lower class because a lot of people on the reservation didn't have money because you didn't really need it. And his cultural beliefs, which is like a Native American belief, so like, you know, thinking about like spirits and like ancestors being a big part of like how you see the world today and guiding yourself. And I felt like that really affected his self-perception of himself, and he almost experienced such as a double consciousness effect because he was kind of in between being able to still be in his culture and using all that stuff like his race and his class to like better himself, or because he went to school off the reservation, he kind of felt like an outsider, that nobody else was like that. So he kind of had an experience of double consciousness. And then I found this term that I thought kind of went along with the question. Cultural difference, the ways in which race, class, sex, gender, sexual orientation, religion, cultural beliefs, and customs combine to form individual identity. So even though we don't want those things to identify ourselves, or some people do want those things to identify themselves and they're confident within it, but it kind of makes you think like, do you think that the way you perceive yourself is the way that you are actually viewed, or do you think that society has kind of clouded your judgment on how you want to perceive yourself?
Okay, so the poem that I chose to do was How to Write the Great American Indian Novel by Sherman Alexie. And so I'll just be giving you like a brief summary, what I thought about like the title of it. It'll mention post-colonial identity, which I'll talk more about. And then I'll talk about connections that I've made about the poem. Okay, so in this poem, Sherman Alexie includes assumptions and stereotypes about Native Americans and how they're portrayed and perceived in the eyes of other people. Whether they're true or false perceptions, they are mentioned in this poem. And you'll hear stereotypes and a misinterpretation of Native Americans and their culture also. Okay, so my poem is like a lot longer than Sierra's, so I picked a portion out of it that I'm going to read so you can follow along on the screen. It says, when the Indian woman steps out of her dress, the white man gasps at the endless beauty of her brown skin. She should be compared to nature, brown hills, mountains, fertile valleys, dewy grass, wind, and clear water. If she is compared to murky water, however, then she must have a secret. Indians always have secrets which are carefully and slowly revealed. So I basically realized something about the title, and in the title it's How to Write the Great American Indian Novel, And so they kind of threw the word American in there before the word Indian. So that kind of just shows how Americans write what they perceive to be an Indian or a Native American novel. So they kind of just threw that word in there when they could have just left it, how to write the great Indian novel. So this poem also has post-colonial identity in it. So some of the quotes I took out of it was, Indians must see visions. If the interior Indian is a female, she must be a healer. And then endless beauty of her brown skin, and she must be in love with a white man. So all of these basically are showing you how people think a Native American should be. If they're like a female, then they should be a healer. They should have brown skin. They should be in love with a white man. So all of these are just examples of that. And that kind of connected with the movie Pocahontas, which most of you have probably seen or heard of at least. And the main character is Pocahontas. So on the left is the movie version of her. So you can see, like, it says, if the hero is an Indian woman, she is beautiful. She must be slender and in love with a white man. So in the movie, she is taller. She has a darker skin complexion. She has long black hair. She is skinny, and she does fall in love with a white man, which is just like in the poem. But on the right is a picture of the actual Pocahontas, and so she doesn't have like as dark of a skin complexion, like they said, the brown skin and long black hair, and she should be like skinny. So that kind of just shows like how people expect Native Americans to be, like the characteristics that they should have, like who they should love, and it's just basically how they portray people.
That's our works cited page.